controversial internally. I get steel labor. I mean, you know, these are tens of thousands of manufacturing union members still working in paper mills and smelters and mines and chemical plants and nuclear power plants. So it's not like everybody is, you know, knee-jerk green in that union's membership. But the president, Leo Gerard, who was originally out of a nickel mining local in Sudbury, Ontario, where they have a big strike going on right now, has really shown progressive leadership, and as a result of partnering with the Sierra Club a number of years ago in a kind of a strike support campaign, have built lasting relationships, which is, you know, the other thing that unions need to learn to do better in terms of community labor coalitions. It can't be like situational. Hey, we're on strike, we need your help, come on down, you know, support our rally, support our cause, and then, you know, the contract gets settled and it's so long, partner. And when the peace group or the environmental group or the social justice group calls the union a month later, you know, can you come down and support our effort? Suddenly, you know, the union's not there. And that's what's so great about Jobs with Justice, right? We're there for each other at least 5 times a year, and people learn that solidarity is a two-way street, that it's about mutual aid and protection, not, you know, situational use of allies who are then disposed of when they're no longer needed. So, yes, in the back.
And, I apologize, I didn't hear your full talk. I think North America's energy resource depleted. The economy is mostly military industrial economy now. And just going to a career fair at the university recently, there were only software engineers, there were only military people there for software jobs. So, you know, I mean, that was the vast majority. And so I think that as the real economy that really services the amount of interest on the debt and our ability to have the standard of living we have due to imperial military domination and sort of freedom of economic state domination, that it's unrealistic to think that there's going to be any techno-triumphalism with, you know, renewable energy and green jobs and this sort of thing. So I think the labor union is the only, it is useful in the sense to scale back and create community and find out what we can do at this point to at least try to network and find out what's goods and services we can provide and skills we can provide. And because you're not going to get health care, you know, the resources aren't there. You know, the sheet is being pulled out from under. I think you're 2 minutes ago, which is 10 years ago.
Well, I think one of the areas where the labor movement was doing more a while ago rather than at the moment is in the area of what used to be called economic conversion. I mean, in the early 1980s, you had major industrial unions like the machinists and the auto workers, which are much less active on this front today, sponsoring conferences and supporting coalitions that really attacked this problem of skewed national priorities, and among defense plant workers tried to generate a very active discussion about alternative production. How could we become less dependent on Pentagon contracts? And one of the locals in our area, was for many years part of the International Union of Electrical Workers. Now it's part of CWA, IUE, CWA Local 201, General Electric plant in Lynn, Mass. Peak production years ago at probably 10,000 workers. It's down to about 2,500 union members right now. Totally dependent on jet engine contracts from the Pentagon. And it's a tragedy because that's a local with progressive leadership that back in the 80s actually sponsored a whole conference about what other things we could make in this plant, you know, not determined by the product line of GE corporate management, but by the workers in the plant that would be socially useful, production for use rather than for war. And we brought over in the early 80s engineers and workers from Lucas Aerospace in Britain, where they had had a whole conversion project where at a major British aerospace military contractor, both blue-collar and white-collar workers had come together to develop an alternative plan for what Lucas Aerospace workers could make that was not dependent on defense contracts. And there was some very progressive leadership in the Machinists Union back then. William Wimpesinger really led the charge on this front, was anti-nuke, and was pro-economic conversion. I think that's another area where progressives in the labor movement need to once again do some creative thinking, find some allies. One of the things that hurts us in this country is that there's so few engineers who are unionized in the private sector. There are public sector engineers, but outside of the aerospace industry and a couple of independent engineers associations like up at, or the one at Boeing is AFL affiliated. We don't have within our ranks what you find in labor movements in other countries, which is this kind of creative interaction of shop floor workers in manufacturing and people in technical and professional jobs, who together, if you put their skills and experience together, really could develop some alternative plans for what could be produced outside of what the market is supposedly producing for us, and certainly what the Pentagon is allocating hundreds of billions of dollars for the production of. Some other, yes?
I work for a company that's very anti-union. In fact, they show anti-union videos. A lot of people are very reluctant to get involved in labor movement because they have a lot of fear that they're going to lose their job. What's the best way to bring those people into the labor movement that they can be a part of the greater labor movement without becoming part of a member, without actually being a member of a particular union? Can you address that?
Yeah, I mean, the fear at work is probably at an all-time high right now because the unemployment line is as long as it's been in recent history. And the longer that unemployment line is, the more fear people have on the job of losing their job, and the less likely they are to take risks. And yet it's amazing, of course, that people still do. And we ask people to do, as organizers, we ask people to do that every day, to take those risks. I think that as a community, we need to create an environment where employer retaliation is unacceptable, and that it's not just unacceptable, not just illegal, but it's wrong, and we're, as a community, collectively, we're not going to stand for it. And developing that sense within our community, developing a consensus among all kinds of people, bougie labor supporters, one of whom is here, but we would need this room filled with bougie labor supporters who get it, right? Who understand that a democracy can't function without a vital labor movement, right? But we don't have that. And getting to that environment where that's an unacceptable practice by an employer, regardless of the fact that it's breaking the law, but we're just not going to tolerate that here in this city or in our community. And I think in some areas we've been trying to kind of build up a movement around workers' rights through Jobs with Justice, where we say to the employer, "Hey, that's wrong. You're not going to. We're not going to do that." In terms of people getting involved in a movement beyond their individual workplace, where they might be in a minority or consigned to a job that just is never in a workplace that's never going to become a union shop. We've got an obligation to create paths, right? Create avenues for involvement. Jobs with Justice, I think, is one of the best, but there are others. There's the individual membership in the Wobblies. There's associate membership in unions that have a program where you can be. I know CWA has done it, where you can be an associate member, pay a small amount of dues, and be an active part of a local union without a contract in your workplace. We need to do a lot more.